In this video, we're going to be talking about the SOC metrics and objectives. My name is Hank Hackerson, your trainer for today. And to get more videos like this one, I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Anything that has to do with data will have metrics and objectives, and KPIs, or also known as key performance indicators, are things that across very many industries are applied to the various forms of data that are brought in. And data is a really big thing in our world today, from the ads that are presented to you, from the events that take place on a computer inside of a security environment. Doesn't really matter. There is a lot of data that's always used. And so being able to read the metrics, understand those metrics and the objectives behind those metrics is a very important thing in security, as you would imagine. So we're going to be talking about those key metrics and driving the effectiveness of the Security Operations Center to find different ways to improve them. That's basically what the purpose of this video is today. So obviously we're going to be talking about the introduction, the core metrics, the triage metrics, improving those metrics, and there is going to be a practical lab at the end of it for us, and of course the conclusion, and you'll be dismissed for the day. As always, the timestamps of these things are going to be in the description below, so if you want to skip around, you can go ahead and do that. And that's pretty much it. So a quick little note from Hackaholics Anonymous, and then we'll dive into the introduction. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below, and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. Data, again, is just super important. So the efficiency of the SOC team can be measured using different indicators and metrics. So for example, something like the mean time to detect something and the mean time to respond to something. Mean in this particular case means average, right? So if you've never heard that, we talked about that a lot in algebra. So that's definitely something that I do remember from algebra. I've forgotten a lot of things, but I do remember that for sure. And the whole idea is to improve those metrics, right? So the average time that it takes for you to detect something, you want to improve that. The average time that it takes for you to acknowledge and respond to something, you want to improve that stuff. So the objectives for today are to understand what the service level agreement is, which is the document signed between a service provider as well as the consumer or the customer, because the customer could necessarily be a business as well. It does not necessarily mean the consumer. But a service level agreement would be the kind of defining the uptime and quality requirements. So for example, your internet service provider may say that we're going to have an uptime of 99.9%, that we're going to be up 99.9% of the time, and we're going to account into the fact that, 0.1% of the time something might take place that service will crash, right? So that's the service level agreement. And so the data that is kind of embedded into that, or at the very least the data that supports that, is the mean time to detect something, the mean time to acknowledge something, and the mean time to respond to something. So understanding the importance of the false positive rate and how that actually affects these data points right here, why and how to improve the metrics as an L1 analyst, and practice with managing SOC team performance metrics. So in the last video that we talked about in the practical exercise, some of the final steps when we were creating the workbook was to email the security engineering team and say, hey, listen, this was a false positive. Please tune our detection rules so that this doesn't come up again. And that improves the metrics that we have at large, because if we're spending time on false positives, we're not addressing the true positives, and time is being wasted, resources are being wasted, and our overall statistics are going to decrease. So this is very important. The completing of the SOC workbook and lookup video is the very most recent video right before this one. So if you haven't done that, please go ahead and watch that. Understand the key alert properties like severity or verdict, and know the difference between in-house and managed security operations center. And we've talked about all of these things in this module that we're in, which is the SOC Level 1 module, the brand new SOC Level 1 module, or I should say SOC Level 1 pathway of TryHackMe. And then we have the SOC Team Internals module that we're in. And then we've talked about all of these things inside of the current module that we're in. So that being said, let's go into the core metrics. Okay, so first, just to remind you what the purpose of a security operations center and really the purpose of cybersecurity is to protect the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of the organization's digital assets, whether it's their systems, whether it's their data. This is the CIA triad is what this is considered. And this is something that's referenced a lot in the CompTIA CYSA Plus certification examination. Everything revolves around this: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So the SOC team performs this purpose by developing, receiving, and triaging alerts. And the L1 analyst, the level 1 analyst, which is going to be you, right? The first job that you would get right above the intern is basically the L1 analyst. And the role in this process is to reliably report true positives to the higher level, which is the level 2. And this leads us to the first 4 metrics. So the alert count, the total count of alerts that are received, and the overall load of the SOC analyst. So basically everything that comes in, that's the alert count. That's the biggest part of the funnel, as we discussed in triage. Then there's the false positive rate. So the false positive rate is the false positives divided by the total alerts, right? So if there are 10 false positives and there are 100 alerts, our false positive rate is 10%, right? So false positives divided by the total number of alerts will give us the level of noise in our alerts. And then we have the alert escalation rate. So this is the escalated alerts divided by the total alerts. So this is, again, if I escalated 10 and we had a total of 100, then the escalation rate is 10%. So this determines the experience of the L1 analyst. So if there are fewer alerts escalated, that means that we have really experienced L1 analysts. If we have a lot of alerts escalated, that means that we have inexperienced analysts. If we have a low false positive rate, that means our detection rules are really solid. If we have a high false positive rate, that means we have detection rules that are very weak and they're wasting a lot of time. Then there's the threat detection rate, which is the detected threats divided by the total number of threats that actually have existed. So the total number of threats could be the false negatives. So that could be something that it's found out later on where it's like, oh, we didn't even detect this. This was actually a threat that was in our system and we didn't even detect it. So the alerts that were, or the threats that were detected, and then there was an alert generated, that would be the detected rate. And then there's the total number of threats, right? Which is, we had certain rules in place that missed a bunch of alerts. We marked them as negative, but they were actually false negatives. And so our total number of threats is actually, 500 instead of it being 350. So we missed 150 threats, right? And that determines the reliability of the SOC team. So imagine starting your shift and seeing 80 unresolved alerts. So we're just going to go through their explanation of all the various metrics that we have here. So there's 80 unresolved alerts. That's definitely overwhelming and prone to missing real threats hiding behind the noise. On the other hand, consider a whole week without any alerts. It sounds better at first glance, but it's also concerning since it's a too low of a count, and it may indicate an issue in the SIM or a lack of visibility, leading to undetected breaches, right? So it could be these total threats that we're just missing. We're missing those threats. So the ideal metric value depends on company size, but in general, 5 to 30 alerts per day per analyst is a good metric. So if you have a team of 10, it would be 50 to 300 total for a team of 10, right? False positives. So if 75 out of those 80 alerts, which is 94%, were confirmed to be false positives, so you have 94% of those alerts being false positives, like system noise or typical IT activity, that's a bad signal for your team. With more noise, analysts tend to become less vigilant and more likely to miss the threat and threat all alerts, just like, yes, this is another spam that just came through. A false positive rate of 0% is unachievable, but 80% or higher is a serious problem, usually fixed by a tool and detection rules tuning, often called false positive remediation. So, alert escalation rate. So, L2 analysts rely on the L1 to filter out the noise and escalate only actionable threatening alerts. At the same time, as L1, you don't want to be overconfident and triage alerts that you don't fully understand without a senior support. The alert escalation rate comes in handy to evaluate how experienced and independent the L1 analysts are and how often they decide to escalate. It is usually aimed to be below 50% or even better, below 20%. So only 20% of those alerts that you see in L1 should be escalated to L2. Because again, these guys are super experienced, these guys and gals are super experienced, so we don't want to waste their time by having them address things that we could have probably easily figured out by just doing some research. So the threat detection rate, imagine that out of 6 attacks for 2025, your SOC team detected and prevented 4 attacks, missed the 5th because of a broken detection rule, and the 6th because of the L1 analyst misclassified the breach as a false positive. The resulting metric is 4 divided by 6, which is 67, and that is a very bad result. The threat detection rate should always be at 100%, since every missed threat can actually have devastating consequences such as ransomware infection and data exfiltration. So this is one of the ones that you really want to just get perfect on. You don't want to miss the threats that come in, because again, just one threat going undetected can destroy the entire company. So you don't want that. So is 0 alerts for a month a good sign for your SOC team? The answer to that is what? Of course, no, because that means that you don't have proper detection rules in place. What is the false positive rate if only 10 out of 50 alerts appear to be real threats? And that would be 20%. I want to say false positive rate if only 10 out of 50 alerts appear to be real threats. Oh, you know what? It's the third position here that kind of threw me off. I'm like, why are there 3 digits for this? And it's so 10 out of 50 means that the false positive is actually 40 out of 50, because 10 out of 50 would be the real threats. So 40 out of 50 would actually be the false positive rate that we're looking for, which is in this case 80%. Very good. All right, so let's talk about triage metrics. So everything that we talked about previously right here, the core metrics, right? A lot of those can be connected to that mean time to detect something. But the mean time to acknowledge and the mean time to respond to something is where triage really is connected to. So to timely receive, alert, and triage something and then respond to it before the attacker can achieve their goal, that's what the triage metrics are. So the requirement to ensure quick detection remediation are commonly grouped into a service level agreement and a document signed between the internal SOC team and the company management, or by the managed SOC provider and its customers, right? So the internal SOC team will sign something that will go to the company management saying, we're going to agree to this agreement to try to maintain those original metrics. If a company hires a third-party provider, which is an MSSP, a service provider basically, if they do that, then the agreement is between the client, which is the company, and then that third-party provider, which is the SOC team. So the agreement usually requires quick threat detection measured by the mean time to detect, timely alert acknowledgement, which is the mean time to acknowledge, and finally the response, which would be the mean time to respond. And that is to respond to the threat, like isolating it or securing the breached account, etc. So we have a malicious event occurs, right? And then the SOC team receives an alert. That's the mean time to detect, and it's 5 minutes, greater than 5 minutes in this case. Then the level 1 analyst starts the alert triage. So they assign it to themselves and they say that I'm working on this. That's what that means. That's what that metric is. So that's the mean time to acknowledge it. And then there's the investigation and everything else, which would end up being it would be the internal processes here. And so the mean time to acknowledge. So from the moment that they say, yes, I acknowledge this, to the moment that they finally have a response for it, that's the mean time to respond to something. So if between the time the alert came in to the time that somebody acknowledged that alert, that's 5 minutes. That is counting towards our mean time to respond to something, because the alert came in. It's just that nobody acknowledged it for 5 minutes. So that counts towards that. And then from there, we have everything else that we do for our investigation, then escalation, all that stuff, and then fully mitigating the breach at the very end. So that's the mean time total, the mean time to respond. So if you mean time to respond 25 minutes, I mean, that doesn't seem like a bad thing, but a lot of damage can be done in 25 minutes, depending on the size of the company and depending on the assets of the company. So that could be devastating. It could be. So the reference table here, we have the SOC team availability. So different teams might have different definitions or formulas for their metrics, depending on what they want to measure. For this and everything else, please use the illustration above as the reference table, which is this thing right here, basically, and the reference table to answer the question. So we have the SOC team availability, the mean time to detect, acknowledge, and respond. So SOC team availability should be 24/7 because hackers don't sleep, and is the working schedule of the team, often Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, or 24/7 mode. And again, depending on the size of the company, it should be 24/7 because if it's a really big enough company, the hacker is going to be like, okay, we're going to do it at 3 a.m., right, on a Saturday or something. It's like these things can happen all the time, and the defensive team should be available all the time. The mean time to detect, 5 minutes in this case, is the average time between the attack and its detection by the SOC tool. The mean time to acknowledge, 10 minutes in this case, the average time for L1 analysts to start the triage of the alert, and the mean time to respond, 60 minutes in this case, is the average time taken by the SOC to actually stop the breach from spreading. And it starts from detection. So the moment that it's been detected, the clock starts on the mean time to respond. And then the mean time to acknowledge should be dropped as much as possible, assuming that there's a big enough team and they're on top of it. They're not sitting on their phones in front of their computer, something like that. And in the meantime to respond this will vary more than anything else because it just depends on the attack that's taking place. So imagine a scenario where the SOC team receives a critical alert on Saturday. If the team works 8 to 5, on which day of the week will they acknowledge it? That would be a Monday. So that's not good. And that's that's like what is that? It could be like a 36-hour mean time to acknowledge something. Do you know what I mean? If it comes in on a Saturday and you work Monday, you could literally be taking easily over 30 hours to acknowledge that alert even came in. So that's really not good. Imagine a scenario where an employee was lured into running data stealer malware. The SOC team received a connection to Redline Stealer alert after 12 minutes. So they received the alert after 12 minutes. And that's where the clock starts for our response time. One of the L1 analysts on shift moved the alert to in progress 10 minutes later. So that's 10 minutes. And then after 6 minutes, the alert was escalated to L2, who spent 35 minutes cleaning the malware, providing the as your answer. So mean time to detect, mean time to acknowledge, and mean time to respond. So mean time to detect itself was 12 minutes, and mean time to acknowledge was 10 minutes, and mean time to fix it, so 35 plus 6 would end up being 41, and then plus 10, that would be 51, and that would be our total time. Very good. So let's talk about improving these metrics. So why is it important for us to improve the metrics? Obviously, it's important because it means that you're more efficient. It means that the team is doing well. It means that you're securing your client, and ultimately you're also securing the world. But the more important one for a lot of people is that if you actually are improving your metrics regularly and you have really good metrics compared to the other people on your team, that means that you're performing well. And if you have good results, you get a raise, right? You actually make more money. You get promoted faster. And these kinds of things are really, really important. So depending on the type of person, some people are just really nerded out by the process itself, and they really want to just be the best that they can be for the work that they do. Some people are financially driven. And if you are financially driven, then just know that the better that your metrics are in this case, the more money you'll make. That's it. Like better metrics equals more money. That's the key metric right there. So the reference table here is this. So the issue is false positive rate over 80%. your team receives too much noise in the alert. So you want to exclude trusted activities like system updates from your endpoint detection response or SIM detection rules. This would not be something that you would do necessarily. This would be the security engineering team, the SOC engineering team, but it could be something that you might be able to do. Then it would be consider automating alert triage for most common alerts using the SOAR or some kind of a custom script, right? To just take care of those things quickly because they're false positives. Mean time to detect over 30 minutes. This means that the tools you're using are very slow or your network is very slow. So there's a high delay to actually detect it. So you contact the SOC engineer to make detection rules run faster or with a higher rate. So, scan the network faster. Instead of waiting 30 minutes or instead of waiting 20 minutes to run the next scan, why don't you scan it every 10 minutes? Like set up the rules so it scans it every 10 minutes. Check if the SIM logs are collected in real time without a 10-minute delay. All these things. Check if the network connection is solid. Check if the tool that we're using, the SIM tool that we're using, is not out of date. It's updated. There are so many things, right? There are so many things that can determine how quickly we can detect something. The mean time to acknowledge is over 30 minutes. This one is if you're working Monday through Friday, there are going to be days where you're not going to detect anything that comes through the weekend, and that will hurt your mean time. It'll hurt your averages, because if something comes in on a Saturday morning and you address it on a Monday morning, that's technically 48 hours that was just added to your average. And so if you have multiple things that came through on a Saturday morning, that's multiple 48 hours that are being added. So that part's really crazy. So ensure the analysts are notified in real time when a new alert appears. Evenly distribute alerts in the queue between the analysts on shift. And of course, move to a 24/7 instead of having a Monday to Friday kind of a schedule. Meantime, to respond over 4 hours, the SOC team can't stop the breach in time, so ask L1 to make everything possible quickly to escalate the threats to L2 and ensure your team has documented what to do during different attack scenarios. That is very, very important. And this has to do with the skill sets of the team, not necessarily the availability of the team. This has to do with the availability of the team. This has to do with the strength of the tools and the rules for those tools. And all of these things feed to whether or not how successful the SOC is and the overall success rate of the way that we detect, acknowledge, and respond to something. So what is the highest acceptable false positive rate for SOC teams? And the highest acceptable, I guess, is 80 based on this. So we'll do 80% based on that. Should all SOC roles work together to keep metrics improving? Yeah, the answer to that is obviously a yes. Absolutely, of course, yes. All right, so let's now do a practice scenario here. All right, as per usual, we have a view site, which is basically how our lab is launched. There we go. So we have 3 scenarios, and it seems like there are 3 flags. Okay, great. So let's see what the first scenario is here. So it says, Dear SOC Manager, our biggest customer, Open Door, was dissatisfied with how we handled breaches. When their CFO's email and Entra ID account were breached, it took us almost 6 hours to kick out the hacker from their mailbox, and threat actors had enough time to dump all emails and leak them on the darknet. Yeah, 6 hours is a long time. So looking at the report, looks like we had a critical alert and spent 5 hours trying to properly reset the victim's Entra ID password and MFA. How could it happen? And what would be your actions? That's very interesting. Okay, so problematic metric, improvement task, and assign to task. Okay, or assign task to, I should say. Okay, so what is it? We say assign the development task to the SOC engineer responsible for the notifications. Time to respond was too high, too much time spent to contain the attack, tune a notification system. Time to acknowledge was too high, assign the research, So it doesn't really give us any information about, how long it took for us to detect it, how long it took for us to acknowledge it. It just says that it took almost 6 hours to kick out the hacker from the mailbox. So meaning the time to respond was too high. So that's the metric there we go. All right. So if that's the metric, the improvement task would be to what? Time to acknowledge was too high. Analyst started the triage too late. I don't know if that's the case, but that can't be the error anymore. So we're not going to do that. So tune a notification system to immediately call L1 after reach new critical alert. That could be a really good one. Create a workbook explaining credential rotation steps and present it to the team. That could be a really good one as well. So I don't think it's the detection maybe that was an issue. It's that it took them a very long time to reset the victim intra ID and MFA. So that would be the one that I would say. And then so who do we assign this to? Assign it to the SOC engineer responsible for notifications. Assign the research work to an L station to that. I'll do that. There we go. All right, that's first one. So let's go ahead and get this over here. That's that. All right, scenario 2. Hey, thanks for the SOC demo for our top management. They loved our ransomware simulation and were shocked at how your team managed to stop the attack in 40 minutes. However, for the first 20 minutes, everyone was just looking at the screen, waiting for some alerts to appear. It would be nice for somehow to reduce this huge delay. So this is a detection issue, right? For 20 minutes, they were just waiting for an alert to appear. So this is critically a detection issue. So problematic here is the fact that the SIM and the detection rules should be running more often. Time to detect of 20 minutes led to a delayed alert triage. So this would be the problematic metric. So we want to tune the SIM to run every 5 minutes and assign this task to the detection rules review to the designated SOC engineer probably, and assign it to implement the log review rules and process now. So this would be the SOC engineer. There we go. That one is pretty straightforward. And there it is. Excellent. So let's go to scenario 3 here. Dear SOC manager, on behalf of our L1 analysts, I want to raise an issue that may require your help. On average, during an 8-hour shift, our L1 analysts close 760 alerts. Holy cow. 95% of them are system noise from the IT or automation scripts. It is impossible to perform a vigilant triage with such a big load. Phrasing. And analysts are starting to get exhausted. Moreover, as the company grows, we receive more and more alerts. Can you help us with this? Okay, so this is clearly a false positive issue, okay? So assign, we're not talking about that yet. What's the problem? The mean time to acknowledge is the main issue. The false positive rate is the core of the problem. Absolutely. So improvement would be to what? To change the triage rules to triage only critical alerts and ignore low severity ones. Okay, schedule a call with the team to implement the false positive remediation process. That is definitely it. And assign it to the SOC engineers to exclude the system and IT noise from the Assign to L1 analysts to control, implement proposed changes. It's definitely not this guy's job. So it would be the SOC engineers to do that. And there we go. Nicely done. We have managed to finish, and that's the last flag. Nicely done. This was probably one of the more simple rooms that we've done so far in SOC 1. It was very straightforward. It didn't require too much research and anything, or any research really. It's like if you can understand the very basics of what it means to detect something, why would something have a high detection wait time? Why would something have a high acknowledgement wait time? Why would something have a high response wait time? When you understand that, when you understand those metrics, then everything else kind of becomes easy. And it's like, okay, well, these are the reasons why we need to be really good at this specific task. These are the reasons why this or this. And so if you can figure out the basics of what it actually means, what these metrics right here mean, if you can understand what these metrics actually mean, then you'll improve the metrics. Then you will have no problem improving the metrics, because understanding what they mean will help you understand what goes into the high numbers of those metrics and why they should be low and how to improve them. So it all comes with the main understanding of it, true grasping of what these things actually mean, what these data sets actually mean. And so if you can understand that, then you will definitely improve your numbers and you'll improve your metrics, and you will be effective, you will get promoted quickly, you will make more money. And all of those things, I think, would be things that you would be interested in doing. If you are interested in getting more videos like this one and you actually got value out of this video, then I encourage you to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you get notified the next time that a video comes out on this channel. And of course, make sure that you check out everything that's already going on. There's a lot of playlists that we're working on right now. So we have the current SOC Level 1 playlist, which is replacing this one right here. So the SOC level 1 legacy is the older one that I had completed already. This was also based on TryHackMe's path for SOC level 1. But a lot of these things have been updated because of the new world of technology that we're in. So we're going through SOC level 1 again with all the good information, the new information, which is the SOC level 1 2025-2026 playlist. That's the one that we're working on right now. And then there's also the offensive pen testing. There's AI for cybersecurity, and then CompTIA Pentest Plus. Those are also still being worked on right now as well. They're not as frequent of an upload as the SOC level 1 because for the most part, we're towards the tail end of the Pentest Plus. And offensive pen testing and AI for cybersecurity, I try to do at least one a week for those. But the bulk of everything right now is the SOC level 1 because most of the visitors that we have on this channel are either focused on going into security analysis or they're beginners and they're introductory. So I want to make sure that they have really solid information. And then the people that are studying pen testing are usually more advanced. So I will get those information out to you as well. It's just that I need to cater to the masses. I know it kind of sounds a little bit bad, but I need to make sure everybody's taken care of. I'm doing this for everybody. I'm not doing it just for one group of people. So I'm doing it for everybody, and I try to get as much information and uploads as I possibly can, as frequently as I can. So bear with me as we go through the development of this channel. And then there's these one-off requests that are made by the people in the community that they're like, hey, can you make a video about this? And can you make a video about this? So I want to do those as well. So there's just a lot, right? There's a lot of information. And then I also have my own personal engineering goals that I have and the API integrations for AI that I want to do and all of these things. So there's so many things that I have to do. And I just try as best as I can to make sure that you guys are taken care of. So hopefully you can be patient with me as we build out the rest of these playlists. That being said, make sure that you drop a comment if you have any questions or if you have any requests. And of course, make sure that you check out the Hackaholics Anonymous membership community. There's a lot of stuff that most of the content inside of this channel is free and it's available to everybody. Like the grand majority of the content is free, available to everybody. But Hackaholics Anonymous, they get a monthly Python automation script, and they have been getting it since the inception of this channel. And so for that, I create these one-off videos that explains each one of those scripts in detail and what what each line of code does so that they can understand it better and they can explain it should they need to use it for a job application or something. So these scripts that I give them, they actually can use in job applications, and I recommend that they do. And these things are mainly intended for Hackaholics Anonymous. With the exception of these videos, everything else is available for free to everybody. And what's interesting is that they also get early access to all of the free videos that everybody else gets. So this video, for example, that you're watching, they got early access to, and then it became public after about, 3 to 5 days, something like that. So just in case you were wondering, you can always check that out as well. So make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, of course, and then make sure that you check out Hackaholics Anonymous. If you want access to my notes and exclusive downloads and to get lifetime access to me on Discord, consider joining Hackaholics Anonymous. We have 4 tiers. We have the supporter, the agent, the guardian, and the master. Each tier gets their own Discord server and early access to content. The agent, guardian, and master levels get exclusive content, exclusive downloads, monthly Python automations, live streams with me every single month, plus so much more. And to join, you can simply click the link in the description below and you will be able to choose the tier for which you want to join. I really hope I see you in the Discord chats. If not, I hope I see you in the comment section. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, your favorite network and system attacker / protector. If no one else loves you, Hank loves you. Love, peace, and chicken grease, and I will see you in the next video later.